Well, hello, friends. Here's Pastor John Lomaking at the 3ABN Podcast Booth General Conference Session 2025, and I am pleased to be joined with a very good friend of mine, Wayne Blakely. Good to have you here, Wayne.
Thank you, Pastor John.
Yeah, every time we get together, sparks fly, something great happens. What's going on in your schedule today?
Wow, well, I have a podcast now, so it's called Relevant Christianity.
Okay.
And I talk mainly on the LGBT topics,
Right.
but I'm not limited to that.
Okay.
So I think it's important to talk about things as people navigate the earth today and
Yes.
still identify as a Christian.
Yes. Now, give a little snippet of your own experience and how the
Sure.
Lord led you.
Well, I was born to a mother who only wanted a girl, not a boy. And so before I was 2 years old, she broke my arm in two different places. And I had an aunt and uncle that my birth father said, he was in the Air Force and thought, I can't handle just having Wayne on his own at home with an abusive mother. So I was adopted by an aunt and uncle who were in the faith and was raised by them, but I developed same-sex attraction. I don't know what all happened, but certainly from the abuse that I'd experienced, I think that had a big effect. And I was in our school system. I was teased, bullied, and harassed. And at 18 years old, I was working at Loma Linda University, and an orderly came by, and he was laughing and carrying on with me, had me call his roommate. And his roommate says to me, before we're on the phone for like 3 minutes, and he says, oh, you're gay. And I was like, what's that? I didn't know what that was. He says, you like guys, don't you? And I was like, it's starting to look that way. He said, well, the church does a great job of telling us that homosexuality is sin, and then dead silence. And he said, so he was upset about that. He says, I know other guys that are LGBT, and that led me away from the church. And that was for 40 years in the LGBT community.
And how did you come back?
Oddly enough, or not so oddly, my parents never compromised. They always loved. They always cared. They didn't tell me what to do. They told me they loved me and that Jesus loved me and that they were praying for me. Well, those 40 years of prayers came and got me. And I was sitting by myself one day, and I realized that all my friends were dead to AIDS. That was like about 40 some close friends and over 100 acquaintances. And I thought, Lord, I don't know, but what do you want from me? And God inspired me that what he wanted me was intimacy, and that he'd courted me my whole life. But if you really wanted to get to know Jesus, you have to court him.
Wow.
And so therefore it takes spending time with God, talking to God, reading, studying, praying, walking with him. And I went back to church for 3 months without telling anybody in my family, because I didn't want it to be a knee-jerk reaction and that I was back out again.
Right.
And then after 3 months, I called them and told them that I was being rebaptized on their 67th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, okay, there's a term you used before, the opposite of same sex. What was that term?
So the opposite of homosexuality is not heterosexuality, but holiness, which is the opposite of any sin or sin problem.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's really, really good, because a lot of people say, well, as long as you're heterosexual, you're okay, but there are a lot of heterosexual sins.
That's right.
And the opposite is wholeness.
The route to the cross is the same for every sin and every sinner.
That's right.
So we complicate it. We think that there's a special equation for somebody that's LGBT. Honestly, there's not. And the key is definitely love. There's this term, we just need to love them. Well, we do, but let's look at the definition of love. Remember, God's love comes from his law, which is also love. And so we don't need to compromise the truth of Jesus Christ, but we need to embrace the LGBT person and then help them walk and find Jesus.
Do we have a website that people can find out more?
Sure. knowhislove.org. knowhislove.org. And
Thank you, Wayne. Always good to see you. I tell you, GC
great to
2025
see you.
always brings great surprises and great blessings. Thank you for joining us here at the 3ABN Podcast Booth. We know that the Lord can change anyone, but as Wayne said, it's not just him pursuing you, but you pursuing him. May God bless you in your journey to wholeness.